Yeah. Subscribe to the channel. Jinya was sitting by the window where she was posting on the internet about the vacancies of her family cook. She was given a smartphone back in school at the end of her studies at the 5th grade. The device was not new, but in excellent condition and quite modern model. So all functions worked well. Thanks to this wild progress, I learned so much about Jinya and how he helped her learn to be a cook. Now, going back to adult life, Jinya wanted to solve two problems at the same time, a job and a home. Therefore, she was looking for a job with her employer. There were so many proposals that the girl had eyes. Who should I choose? Finally, she decided that she would give preference to a family with children, but not with teenagers or adults. She guessed that young majors would hardly be inferior to her. She called several customers and chose two families. One of them had 3 adults, a husband, a wife, an elderly mother, a husband, and 3 preschool children. The other one had only 2 adults and a 5-year-old child. She looked and asked, "How old are you?" I said, "You're so young. You probably don't have much experience." "Yes, I just recently got my diploma. But in practice, we worked in a children's health camp, then in a boarding school for minors, so it's not what you need at all." Her mistress killed her. The hospital, as you understand, is very different from family nutrition. Moreover, we have a grandmother with high requirements. So, you're not for us. Jinya said goodbye, and then, passing by the office, a kid buggy passed by, covered in 3 boys of different ages. They were screaming like fans at the stadium, and one boy, passing by, painfully pulled her by the hand, but so that her mother would not see. Jinya going outside. It's good that I didn't come up to them. The second address was nearby. She walked along the cottage village with pleasure. The wind was blowing her wavy gray hair. The spring sun shone from the perfectly washed windows of the houses. The young greenery which was just in the yard. He moved the chair and suggested, "Maybe you want some coffee or tea. I see you've been coming here for a long time." "No, thanks. And in this weather it's very nice to stroll the streets." However, I would not refuse a glass of water. The owner asked to bring the maids. Then he began to ask about the age, experience, and place of residence. "So far, I live in a dormitory." "So you are an orphan?" he asked. "Yes." Jinya admitted. "They told me that my mother refused to go to the maternity hospital." He looked at her with clear sympathy. "I hope our family will accept you as a relative. Most people work here for a long time. I know some of them from my childhood, so maybe you will live here too. Well, let's get acquainted. My name is Sergei Platonovich Valnov, and I am Yevgeny Andreevna Zimina. I was brought to the orphanage in winter." She explained the origin of the surname, and where the surname comes from, I don't know. She pulled out a folder with her documents. The man looked closely at the notes, and he looked at the children's photo of Jinya, where she looked like a wild angel. He looked at the unbiased certificate. "Well, judging by the documents, you are smart. Now, they will show you where you will live and where to work. We have a small family, but the preparation for the staff will also be for you. Nina," he nodded at the maid, "will tell you everything." And then he put a contract in front of Jenny. She ran through it and signed it. "You can move right today. We have not had a cook for 3 days, so we have to eat in deliveries." Sergei smiled. Margarita Eduardovna's wife lived in a big house. A young but strict woman, year-old son Kirill, his nanny and maid, whose duties included also kitchen help if necessary. Gardener with duties of a janitor. Guard and watchman behind buildings and communications lived in a small house. Jinya was settled in a small room next to the kitchen, and she willingly took up the job. Organized a family of employers 3 times a day according to the contract. Taking into account their tastes and wishes, she prepared for the workers living in the estate. Her household had modern kitchen equipment, including a dishwasher. They unloaded it together with the maid Nina and wiped the tableware, silver, and glasses to the shine. Jinya almost never saw his wife Valnova and his son, as they had lunch on the 2nd floor, and the maid brought them ready-made food. Margot, as the wife called him, was the chief editor in his large publishing house, so they left for work together. They came for lunch, rested a little, and left again until the very late evening. One day, Jinya, standing behind the open door of the kitchen, felt someone's close look on her and turned around and saw a baby. He pointed at her with his finger and asked the nanny, making an accent on the word "our." "Is this our aunt?" The nanny answered, "Ours, ours," and took him out. Jinya liked this life, although there was almost no free time. On Sundays, everyone had a day off. The owners usually left, and Jinya called her grandparents' friends, and they met somewhere in the cafe. Somehow, Nanny Karusha got sick, and the watchman behind him was entrusted by Nina and Jinya. The boy turned out to be very thoughtful, talkative, and curious. He kept asking how Jinya was cooking his favorite cottage cheese. I had to demonstrate the whole process. Kirill, sitting on the kitchen stool and shaking his legs, plowed the cottage cheese with sour cream and assured Jinya, "When I grow up, I will also be a cook, like you. You will teach me." Jinya was being. She patted him on the head and said, "I don't have a mother. And there was never one." "Where did you get it from?" The boy was surprised. "I had a mother. Well, now I don't have one," he said and lowered his head. Jinya was surprised and looked at the baby. She didn't understand. He thinks up or tells the truth. Is it really Margot, his mother? She decided to ask Nina, but when the owners arrived, the son ran to them with a scream. "Dad, Mom." That's why Jinya calmed down. Children at his age love to make up fairy tales, she decided. But a few days later, Jinya became a witness to a very strange scene. It was Saturday evening. Valnov left somewhere alone, and Margot stayed at home. She brought the boy to the kitchen and said, "Jinya, sit with the child, I also need to go to work." Kirill climbed onto his favorite stool. Margot went to the garage. When her car was passing by, he jumped off the stool, ran up to the big window, and several times threatened with a fist towards the car. Jinya was ashamed of him. "Kirill, can you treat your mother like that? She's not my mother." "Not your mother." Suddenly, hysterically, the baby screamed, threw himself at her, and, grabbing his hands, cried out, "Kirill, what's wrong with you? Don't be so upset. Did you have a fight with your mother?" She tried to find out. "No, I don't want to call her Mom. This is what Dad makes me do." And he again stumbled into Jinya's apron. The girl didn't know what to do, what to comfort a child who suffers so desperately. She suggested, "Do you want me to let you make the cottage cheese yourself?" The boy raised his wet eyes at her and answered with a little sobbing from the cry, "I want to, Sam? Well, I'll help a little bit." She washed his crying face and took out a glass bowl from the wardrobe. "So, we put the cottage cheese here. Now we add eggs, sugar. Come on, mix it well." The boy was trying to beat the mass with a whisk. "Now we add vanilla, semolina, and baking powder. So we add sour cream. Here, see what a beautiful mass it turns out? White. The boy licked the dough from his finger. "Wow, delicious. And raisins?" "Oh yes, Jinya took it. So, let's wash it in hot water. I like this. Now add to the dough. Well, that's it. You can pour it in the molds." She got a mold for the cakes, greased them with butter, and began to spread the dough. "I will be." The baby was bored. "Really, I'm getting it." His eyes shone. "Really, Karusha? How long should I wait?" he asked. "Look at this glass door. It's like a..." Sergei ordered me to bring Kirill. "We will spend the night at the friend's house. Please pack his backpack," she said. Margot went up to her, and Jinya and Kirill went to the children's room. Jinya put a change of underwear in his backpack, just in case. Pajamas and a warm sports suit. And slippers, Karusha said. Jinya put them too. Kirill grabbed the backpack and ran down the stairs. Jinya threw him. She saw him jump onto the porch and jump onto the road behind the car. At that time, Margot, who was already behind the wheel, suddenly turned back. And the boy would have been hit under the wheels if Jinya hadn't caught up with him and pushed him off the car. Kirill fell, broke his knee, and cried. Margot jumped out of the car. "Why don't you watch the child?" she shouted. "I didn't even see him." Kirill. Seeing that Jinya got into trouble because of him, he immediately stopped crying. He gave his hand to the boy and sat down in the car child seat. Then he turned back and sent Jinya an air kiss. Margot strictly told him, "Don't come back," and they left. Jinya returned to the kitchen, where Nina cooked a quick dinner for the workers, and had a hard time breathing. I thought my heart would explode. These kids are so fast. Just make sure nothing happens to him. "Well, yes," Nina said. "We have a child in the yard. just like that. Daddy didn't see him behind the car. He gave it back, and that's it. So little grief. He was also sentenced to death for carelessness. Jinya was tormented with various thoughts. Why did Margot give it back? She's not the first year behind the wheel. She couldn't mix it up. But did she do it on purpose? This suspicion made her heart cool. Nina confirmed that Margot was not Kirill's mother. After the weekend, Volnu asked Jinya to come to his office after lunch. He began to ask about what had happened. It turns out that Kirill told everything to her father with tears and screams. She wanted to choke me. She was so angry that she was afraid that I would be beaten up. She was so angry that she was afraid that I would be beaten up. She was so. Jinya blushed at these words. Sergei Platonovich, I can't say that your wife did it on purpose, but what I know for sure is that Kirill doesn't want to call Margarita Dardovna his mother. He does it only because you force him to. And in general, you have a very wonderful son, but he suffers a lot. Valnov lowered his head. He said a little slowly, I hoped he was still a little boy, didn't understand anything, and would get used to it. What are you saying, Sergei Platonovich? At this age, children perceive their mother as an integral part of themselves, said Jinya. It seems I have caused him an injury, said Volnov. I will have to talk to him. The next day, the owner again called Jinya to her, and this time Margot was in his office, and turned away to the window, letting out cigarette smoke. Sergei Platonovich was mumbling. Then Margot looked at him with a strict gaze, and he began. Tell me, Jinya, when you were packing Kirill's backpack, was there a tablet on his table? Jinya remembered that there was really a gadget on the table on which Kirill often watched cartoons and played developing games. She firmly nodded. The thing is that after you, no one entered the nursery, the owner continued, and the tablet disappeared somewhere. The eyes did not get rounder. That's how. They're trying to blame her for theft. She closed her mouth with her hand, so as not to get infected with a grudge. She was so overwhelmed with emotions. And Varnov, seeing her confusion, suggested, Let's do this. Now we will all go into your room and see. What if the tablet was accidentally found in your room? You've been watching Karusha for several days now. Jinya put a small key from her room on the table. Please, Sergei Platonovich, search it. Valnov grumbled. Why are you doing this? Nobody is going to search you. We'll just look for it together. He stood up and showed Jinya the way out. Please. The tablet was not found in the room, but he was found in the kitchen where Nina and Kirill were sitting at that time. The gadget was in the kitchen towel box. The boy saw it, waved with joy, and began to jump around the kitchen. I found it, Vernovo asked Jinya. Please explain. She kept silent and decidedly did not understand how this thing could end up here. The evening when she was packing her backpack, she was seen in all details. After Margot and Kiryusha left, she started to dress up and went down to Nina's. They had dinner, talked a little, and went to their rooms. The owners came the next day. Margot immediately went up to her, and Sergei Platonovich and his sons played in the yard for a while. Everything was going well. That the tablet was taken by Margot and put in her box. But there was no evidence in Jinya, and so she just said, I didn't take the tablet. Kiryusha heard the conversation of adults and shouted loudly, Don't scold Jinya. She's good. This is Margot took the tablet. I saw. What are you talking about? The voice of the boy said, I saw. The boy did not care. You put me to sleep, and then took the tablet and left. Valnov blushed. He took his son in his hands and quickly left the kitchen. Margot jumped out after him. Sergo, wait. I didn't find a charger. I wanted to charge the tablet somewhere else, and then I brought it back. Serioza. It was heard how they hurried up the stairs and how Valnov loudly said, That's all, I said, and slammed the door of the office. And how Margot cried for a long time under the door, blaming her husband for believing everything but her. Then she went down to the kitchen and threw a knife at her. Where did you come from? We lived as a family until you were gone. The child called me Mom, and now he's acting like I'm a scum. Margot opened the fridge, took the bottle of vodka that the security guard drank for dinner, and went to his room. Half an hour later, a terrible noise came out of her room. Drunk Kira's mother was grumbling in her bedroom. Broken mirrors were ringing. Chinese vases, bottles with perfumes were falling. Women ran upstairs. Valnov already broke into the bedroom and tried to deal with the unmanaged wife. Seeing Jinya, he yelled at Nina, "Call an ambulance, she seems to be in a bad mood." Nina ran to call, and Jinya rushed to help. Margot felt incredible power. She was clearly not in her right mind. She tried to bite her husband, and seeing Jinya, she clung to her blouse with her long nails. The blouse tore apart, and Valnov saw a black silk cord with an unusual carved cross on his chest. "Where did you get this from?" he asked Jinya, hardly holding the hands of his wife. "From birth," Jinya answered. "They said in the orphanage that my mother hung him on my neck when she refused." Valnov looked at her strangely and shouted with impatience, "Nina, did you call or not?" At this moment, an ambulance arrived at the house. Two large nurses jumped out of the car with stretchers, and then the doctor followed them. Quickly assessing the situation, he came up to Margot and injected her with a strong drug. She softened and began to crawl to the floor. The nurses loaded her on a stretcher and took her to the car. The doctor talked to the owner, took the documents and things that Nina brought, and left soon. Sergei Platonovich sat on the edge of the bed, grabbing his heart. "With such a nervousness, you can get into the mental hospital yourself," he said, and looked at Jinya. "Come on, I'll show you something." They came to his office. The owner took out a thick album in a leather. "We tried brandy with the guys, but it doesn't matter." Kira was terribly distracted, and she fell asleep in my bed. When everyone left, I saw sleeping Kira. In general, you understand, he didn't finish. Then, a couple of months later, Kira's family moved to Khabarovsk. Her father was a military man, so they often went around. I lost contact with her, and then I found her on social networks. And we started to write to each other. In the end, we got married. We didn't have children for a long time. Kyusha was born when we were all ready, and then she got sick. We fought with our lungs for a long time, but we couldn't win. Ira died 2 years ago. He kept silent, and Jinya, still not understanding why he tells her all this. "Sergei, can I go change?" she asked. As if awoken from her question, he grabbed her by the hand. "Wait, I didn't tell you the main thing. Before the end, Ira admitted to me, I can say, she repented for giving birth to a girl from me. She didn't say it before. She was afraid, although what was she to do? The parents put her under strict conditions. Or she will refuse the child in the maternity home. Or they will refuse her. She was only, so I do not judge her for this choice. She told me, dying. Remember that. You were born in Khabarovsk. Nobody knows in which orphanage you were born. You have the same name, surname, and family name. I couldn't even imagine that you still wear this cross. But how can I not wear it? It's the only gift from my mother." Jinya spoke quietly. Analyze became a family album of Valnov's, which began with the children's photos of Ira and Sergei. Here they are in the kindergartens. Here they go to the first grade. And here are their school parties. In all the photos, a girl with long, reddish hair is seen on the neck of a girl with long, reddish hair. In wedding and family photos, there was no black cord on her neck, and instead a golden chain was twinkling. Jinya looked at the mother's beautiful smile and kind eyes, and could not believe that this woman could refuse her own daughter. But she was only. She recalled the words of the sick. "Listen," she suddenly said, clearly having fun, "it turns out that Kirill is my brother?" "That's right." "Well, Jinya, you surprised me. So, the fact that I am your father made you happier than Kirill is your brother?" "I'm sorry." "Oops, sorry, Dad," she said, laughing. "Well, I still don't know you very well, but we became friends with Karusha. I just adore him." "Well, great," said Varnov. "Now in our life, everything will be different. We will arrange you for the faculty of restaurant business. Margot will send you for forced treatment." That's how I knew that her passion for alcohol will not lead to good. One thing is bad. Now I will have to look for another cook instead of you. You did a great job, Sergei Platon. Dad, maybe we don't need any restaurant business? I will be happy to cook for the whole family. We'll save money. Save money? No way. Not only did my daughter spend her whole life in casinos, I will also save money on her. No, it's decided. You will go to school, and now immediately move to the second floor. Come closer to us. I dream of talking to you. Jinya was going to say something else, but her father came up to her and hug her gently. If you like the story, please support me with the thumbs up button. One click, but it is very important to me. Thank you.